what Justin was saying. One silly, one serious. The silly one, when you said Tom Merritt franchise, I realized, man, I am that franchise. I left St. Louis and ended up in LA. I feel awful. Second, less silly. I think editor is a better description of what I do, even though I'm not an editor of people all the time. Like, I'm editing the internet, which sounds way too grand for what I mean, but I'm acting as an editor of the things that are coming in off the internet and aggregate. Because I always say, like, I'm an analyst. I'm not a journalist. I don't conduct journalism. But editor is actually closer to it. It's like I'm taking everything in and then saying, okay, let's boil it down to the essentials.
100%. My favorite editor that I worked with at a newspaper was in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and that dude knew what the readers wanted, and it shaped my worldview so much to know it's not necessarily about what I can get. It's not necessarily about how well I can write it. It's not necessarily even about how much I can make it true, how much I can make it evocative. There were some stories where, he told me there was an ugly story, and I don't want to get into the exact crime that happened, but it was, suffice to say, horrific, and it involved children. And, I had written it in a very plain spoken, graphic kind of way, as I had been at the courthouse listening to people say it in full, complete quotes.
Yeah.
And, his answer was, or his thing to me was like, people are reading this over breakfast, and you need to understand that this doesn't make it less true. Mm-hmm. It makes it more like that they'll read it, that they'll get through it, that they won't put the paper down, and the world will be more informed if you write this better with that in mind. And that's something that I've always appreciated about this, and I think is going to be a great feature for this new. Do you have an official name for it?
I mean, not yet. I'm still working that through. From the editor's desk is sort of the working title. We'll go from there.
Well,
but yeah, check it out if you're a Patreon at the $5 a month level. We'll talk about it again in the show. It's at patreon.com/DTNS. Also led me to think maybe we should flip Good Day Internet and DTNS around. I don't know. We'll kick that idea around too.
Kick it like Tom.
Bend it like Justin. All right. You guys ready?
Yes.
DTNS begin.
Wait a minute. Why is she still in here? Wait, am I in the right one? Nope, I am not in the right one.
You're not ready. Okay, that's fine.
No, I just want to make sure. Sorry. Why am I over there? Cool.
All right, you're in the right one now?
Yes.
DTS will begin in 30 seconds. Batten down your hatches.
Yeah.
Hatting down your batches.
Batten down your matches that you're going to light the fire that we didn't start.
Batch commit your mattress.
And remember, only flip over the table when you talk about Cola Wars.
Right. That's good advice. All right, here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thanks to everyone who supports Daily Tech News Show directly. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Tech News for Monday, October 22nd, 2018 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
In Oakland, California, I'm Justin Robert Young.
And I'm the show's producer from somewhere in LA County.
Whose name is?
Roger Chang.
Thank you. We are missing a Sarah Lane today. She's got the day off. And by missing her, I mean she's missing from the show, and we miss her. But she will be back tomorrow. So Justin, Roger, and I will attempt to hold down the fort. We're going to talk a little bit about Facebook potentially looking to buy a cybersecurity company. I just call them security companies, but in case you're talking to somebody who doesn't follow this stuff like we all do, cybersecurity, even though it's cyber. I hate the word cyber. Anyway, for another time, let's start with a few tech things you should know.
Linus Torvald is back after several weeks away from managing the Linux kernel. Torvald is meeting with top developers of Linux at the Maintainers Summit in Scotland. Torvalds took a break to, quote, get some assistance on how to understand people's emotions and respond appropriately, end quote.
Intel directly refuted a report from tech news outlet Semi-Accurate that claimed it was not accurate at all when they said sources said Intel would abandon development of a 10 nanometer process. Intel said the report was untrue and, quote, "We are making good progress on 10 nanometers. Yields are improving, consistent with the timeline we shared during our last earnings report." And if you missed it, that last report promised 10 nanometer chips sometime next year.
Oculus co-founder Brennan Iribe is leaving Facebook. TechCrunch reports Iribe is leaving because his project, a PC-based Rift 2 headset, was canceled as Facebook focuses on an all-in-one headset that doesn't require a connection to another device.
So creative differences. He's going to do solo projects now. Samsung officially announced its HMD Odyssey Plus mixed reality headset. Still $500 like the previous version, but with technology it says eliminates the screen door effect. That's pretty much the only improvement here. There's a couple others we'll mention. Samsung is using a light diffuser to bleed light from adjacent pixels together to make those black lines that cause the screen door effect, as they say, near impossible to see. Otherwise, the headset is a little lighter at 1.31 pounds, down from 1.42, has a wider nose guard, wider eye box, and is available now in South Korea, with China, Hong Kong, and Brazil getting it soon. All right, let's talk about Bloomberg and modified motherboard allegations and Supermicro, Justin.
The story that keeps giving us stories. Supermicro sent a letter to customers Monday saying it will conduct, quote, "a complicated and time-consuming review to further address," end quote, allegations from Bloomberg, a Bloomberg report that its hardware had been compromised. Supermicro has denied the report that hardware allowing spies access to networks was placed on its motherboards during manufacture in China. Meanwhile, Andy Jassy, CEO of Amazon Web Services, tweeted at Tim_Cook. You know him? He's the CEO of that Apple place.
Oh, yeah, I heard of him.
He was right. Cook was. Bloomberg's story is wrong about Amazon, too. They proved. Story kept changing and showed no interest in our answers unless we could validate their theories. Reporters got played or took liberties. Bloomberg should retract.
Second call for retraction, although a call for retraction from CEO Tim Cook of Apple, a more unusual event than a call for retraction from Andy Jassy. I don't know that Andy Jassy has ever retracted anything before either, but he's not quite in the same spotlight that Tim Cook is. But reporters got played is an interesting accusation. Starting to put forward this idea like you just don't know what you're talking about. Somebody's fooling you. I don't know who it would be that would fool a Bloomberg reporter and a Bloomberg editorial desk into printing this, and what their motivation would be. But at this point with this story, Justin, I'm just about ready to believe one explanation as much as another. When last we talked, we were parsing those initial 1 or 2 line reactions from companies.
Yeah.
They've now done full statements and asked for retractions. How are you feeling about it now?
And have doubled down almost consistently. Each time they say something more forceful than they did before. Whereas, like you mentioned before, I was looking for the way that you could wiggle, because whenever you're talking about government contracts and, you know, foreign governments and stuff like that, you got to be a little soft shoey. But this is absolutely the opposite. This is stomp. This is not ballet when it comes to them trying to deal with these rumors. Tim Cook does not comment on this stuff directly. He has now commented on it as publicly as he ever comments about anything, which is normally Alabama, Auburn football. So if you're at that level, this is about as commercial and popular culture exposed that he gets. I agree with you, Tom. This is highly unlikely, and we're going to get to a point where either Bloomberg right now has their relationships with these companies damaged, because that's just what happens whenever you have something where the companies are saying, absolutely not, this is not true, you must retract. You're going to have to deal with some reputational fallout. But I'd be curious, as a reader of theirs, I think that it is almost incumbent upon them to open the kimono a little bit and show a little bit more of at least their thought process in terms of these sources and where it came from.
Yeah, I mean, again, some of this will be a repeat of things I've said previously, but the situations that might fit the facts are the sources they're talking to know this happened, but are not allowed to tell anyone. So their bosses wouldn't know, and their bosses could, in full faith and honesty, say this didn't happen because their bosses don't know. And Bloomberg wouldn't be able to reveal who they are because it's confidential, and it would cause legal issues for Bloomberg and others, including the sources. It's not likely that this is trolls or social engineering, unless it's social engineering by people in the government and at these companies. I'm going to trust at this point that Bloomberg is still good enough that they can tell when someone really did work at a place or really is working for the U.S. government or not. That's one of the first things you ask about a source. Are they real? Are they vetted? Are they who they say they are? So given that, it's either they didn't know, or this is a highly coordinated intelligence attack to plant this for some reason from within the U.S., not Russian trolls, not Chinese hackers, etc.
Which is odd because the U.S. government has also kind of pushed back on this.
Right. It's the same thing. People within the government and within the companies say it happened to Bloomberg, but they can't say who they are. Whereas the people in charge of the government and in charge of the company say no. Either we say it didn't happen or we have no evidence. But interesting that Supermicro now having to go back and say, okay, to calm down investors, we need to go through and thoroughly examine this to make absolutely certain that we can say with all honesty, no, it didn't happen.
Yeah. Look, one real quick journalism note. I have always referred to anonymous sources as kind of like black magic. They are very powerful. You need to use them very sparingly because at the end of the day, this can happen to you. If you don't have a federal official on the record, you don't have an ex-employee on the record that can take this kind of heat, then you are staking your outlet's reputation on the fact that, trust us, we got this right.
Yeah, and then a demon crawls out of your eye because you didn't know what you're doing with the black magic. That's a Mike Cole reference. Tech Radar notes some people are reporting that the new Windows 10 October 2018 update available to Windows insiders doesn't handle zip files well, failing to ask for permission to overwrite previous versions, or sometimes just not writing the new version and not telling you, so you think you have the new version, but you still have the old version. This is if you're unzipping a file that is full of files that you've unzipped multiple times before. Microsoft has put the update out for testing after fixing a bug that deleted files for some users. So this zip file thing, not nearly as serious, but everybody's on the lookout for bugs this time around. Ars Technicus Peter Bright notes that some commentators believe that Microsoft is having these problems because it's trying to do 2 updates a year and they should cut back. But Bright makes a very well-reasoned and researched argument that Microsoft needs to fix its development process. It's not about doing things 2 times a year. Ubuntu does things 2 times a year. Microsoft itself does Office every month. It's not about that. They'd have the same problems just once a year instead of twice a year unless they fix their development process in which they allow bugs to come out into public builds.
Yeah. Look, this is something that Microsoft wants to keep pace and be thought of as a well-maintained and forward-thinking operating system, not just the standard that you get on the computer that you buy, specifically when they're creating hardware for it. So I can understand the desire to do 2 updates a year, and I don't know. Sometimes you're going to get some rat hair in the sausage, I guess.
Well, I highly recommend people go read Peter Bright's article at Ars Technica because he makes the argument better than I ever can. But what he's saying is it's the process that they use. If their process didn't allow bugs, and he compares it to Chrome OS, where every build is considered to be close to production ready, if not production ready. If Microsoft did that, they wouldn't have these problems. It's that they allow commits of code that are known to have bugs with the idea that they'll fix them afterwards. Yeah. And sometimes that even leads to knowing there's a bug in a public release, but saying they'll fix it afterwards. And he says, look, this has been going on forever. Back when they would release a Windows every 2 or 3 years, you waited for the service pack because that's when they fixed the bugs that went out in the public version. Microsoft just needs to stop that and create a better infrastructure for testing and commit to squashing bugs before they go public. Seems pretty reasonable to me.
Well, speaking of squashing problems, Amazon patched 13 security flaws in the open source free RTOS, which is used in the Internet of Things devices. Technical details will be disclosed in 30 days by Zimperium, which found the flaws. Amazon Web Services took over maintaining free RTOS core in November of last year.
Yeah, so I think this is one that you might look at and go, oh, okay, well, that's interesting, whatever, Internet of Things platform. But this is Amazon showing up on your radar in the cloak of Microsoft. This is the Windows or Android of the future. The Internet of Things devices are multiplying. They're all over your house. And the interesting thing is, you don't buy a smart home device because it runs free RTOS or safe RTOS or one of the distributions built on free RTOS. You just buy the smart thing, right? So Amazon kind of taking over stewardship of this open source operating system is kind of just taking on a lot of problems. And at the same time, feeling like, but then we'll benefit because we'll be in on the ground floor and we'll be the Android of SmartThings devices, which is essentially kind of what this is right now. So this is a good story. Zimperium found flaws in Amazon's stewardship worked, and they squashed the bugs. And in 30 days, they'll make sure everybody knows about them once they're patched, once small companies have had a chance to put out the patches. But it's something to put on your radar that, like, hey, Amazon is trying to be the what Google is to smartphones and what Microsoft is to desktop operating systems.
Fix these problems proactively now, or deal with the front page story about your big problem later. Yeah. That is the new law of corporate responsibility.
IBM and Visa announced B2B Connect, a distributed ledger run on IBM's Ethereum-based permissioned network. The system tokenizes sensitive data like customer information and account numbers to help facilitate global payments. The problem with these things, and they're often called blockchains, even though permissioned networks are really just distributed ledgers. There's a lot of controversy over whether you should call them blockchain. It's like the hacker versus attacker debate. Everyone calls it a hacker, even though they know, well, it's not always necessarily the most appropriate word. So I didn't call it blockchain here because it really is a distributed ledger on a permission network. But this would be a big advance if they can make it scale, because Visa always touts that they can theoretically process payments faster than Bitcoin because of the breadth of their network, but they haven't been able to get a distributed ledger, a permissioned one, to scale to that level yet. Maybe this is the case.
Well, there's going to continue to be a need to transfer this kind of information. Bitcoin creates a decentralized platform to do it, and Visa and IBM are gigantic brand names that want to get in on the new thing. So I think that this makes sense on a lot of levels.
Every press release on this will use the word blockchain, just so you know.
Yes. So please apply your blockchain terminology appropriately.
It is really just a chain of blocks, after all.
Intellivision is planning a comeback, but not in a tiny nostalgia form, but a new console called Amico. The idea is that each title will be affordable between $3 and $8 or so, exclusive to the platform. And once you buy it, it's the whole game. No DLC. The games announced are full reimagined classics from Intellivision, Atari, iMagic, and more, including Astro Smash, Baseball, Centipede, and Tempest, along with others. They hope to sell the console for $149 to $179 and target people who find the barrier to entry for a current gaming scene too high. But in any case, don't be in a hurry. Amico is expected to come out October 10th, 2020, when I'm sure nothing will be different in the world. Right, Tom?
Yeah, this is interesting. So we've seen Commodore try to come back with a brand new device. Atari is doing the same thing, a gaming device under the Atari name, and sort of leveraging its ability to say, oh, and you can also play all those classic Atari titles. And then, of course, what Nintendo has done is just put out small versions, and Sega now too, small versions of its old consoles that play its old games. But what Amico is trying to do, or Amico, is compete with Nintendo. And Nintendo's big advantage is to say, hey, maybe you don't need all the power of a PlayStation or a PC, and we're here for you. You just want to play fun games with the family. That was the big success of the Wii. It's one of the things that still drives the success of the Switch. And so Intellivision is saying, maybe we can get in on that action by being even cheaper and leveraging that nostalgia that we had. Granted, not that Nintendo is lacking any kind of nostalgia. You've got all kinds of old games you can play on the Switch now. But I don't know, not a bad gamble. But like you say, by 2020, things on the ground might be a little different.
What also seems like... Sorry, go ahead, Roger.
Oh, no, I was just going to say this. I liken these to the commemorative plates that they used to hawk on TV for whatever bit of nostalgia that you had 10, 15, 20
Wait,
years.
you're talking that's not what this is at all.
No, I know. But they're trying to leverage that in a way. They're trying to leverage the whole nostalgia scene that's occurring right now in order to
I don't think so, though. Maybe. I mean,
no,
if you read the speech, he was very much like, no, this is going to be a great console for people to play now. And yeah, okay, so we got a bunch of nostalgia games. They didn't emphasize the nostalgia as much as usual. That was what I took.
No, I actually think that you're both right. And this is why this product is bad, is that it is trying to be the best of both worlds. And it is trying to get Rogers commemorative plates. And I don't know if these games are necessarily thought of as fondly as maybe Amico wants to think of them in terms of the modern market, nor do I necessarily think that people are going to put a ton of time and effort into creating games for this platform when they're going to cap the amount that you're going to charge for it between $3 and $8, which is like more expensive than a mobile game, way less expensive than a console. We'll see what happens in 2020. But if Nintendo has famously had a hard time figuring out third-party developers, and they've been better with the Switch, let me make that clear, then I have no idea what Intellivision has up their sleeve.
Hey, Roger, I think what my interpretation of what Intellivision is doing is saying, hey, we've got a really great plate that you can use for your food right now, and it's super cheap, and it comes with these 4 small commemorative plates too.
Yeah, but if you remember, those commemorative plates also said not for eating.
Right, no, that's what I'm saying. Intellivision is saying, no, this plate's for eating. Yeah. And we also have some small commemorative plates.
It's a very interesting way to approach the market. Good luck on them. I'll see how they do in a couple of years.
Hey, folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. So the information, the web publication, has sources that say Facebook has ramped up what it had been looking at doing for a while, trying to acquire a security company. Sources say Facebook wants to buy a company with software it could fold into its existing services to secure user accounts and alert them to hacking attempts. Luke Stengel at Silicon Valley Business Journal points out that Facebook has made some small cybersecurity acquisitions in the past, including in 2014. They bought out Palo Alto-based Private Core. They are looking for companies that do analytics, suspicious behavior monitoring, and account risk assessment. So instead of a security company that does like antivirus or something like that, they want to do something that specifically is going to help a user who has an account on Facebook or Instagram or WhatsApp. Cupertino-based Demisto, San Francisco-based Jask, Colorado-based Swim Lane, Maryland-based ZeroFox, and Virginia-based Safeguard Cyber are all identified by the information as the types of startups that might fit the bill, although none of their sources would say which companies Facebook is actually talking to. So they may or may not be talking to any of these. Interesting, Justin, though, the idea of Facebook making a bigger splash to buy some security, both from a PR standpoint as well as a security standpoint.
And also, let's just ask the question very quickly. We don't have to dwell on it. Where do you think this story is coming from? I would guess that it's probably among these companies that want to fashion themselves, whether the interest is real or not. And I had no reason to assume that it's not, as acquisition targets by gigantic companies like Facebook. Moving on. This is a very interesting story to me for this reason. Facebook, and I think a lot of these internet platforms, have thought about security as oops, you screwed up the user. We'll make it easy for you to help clean up your mess that you made up till now. And we are looking at a real crisis point in the reputations, and quite possibly a situation where government intervention could be something that is on the horizon for some of these companies, including Facebook. So now the question seems to be, not only with this story, but also others that we have seen, are, well, wait a minute. Maybe we weren't as customer focused as we were before. Maybe we did tip the scales a little too far on the, hey, let's make sure that we funnel these people into as many advertising channels as possible, instead of let's make sure that these guys, that our users have a good experience, not just a profitable experience for us, because their thoughts of us, not only as users, but also as voters and members of the larger culture is very important. And so whether or not this is theater or this is we need to lock down a problem that we are seeing develop, to me, it is important that this is consumer level security and not necessarily the larger, okay, we have a bot swarm that's trying to attack us. And it's the difference between a locksmith and the CIA.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I think. Back in August, Facebook's chief security officer, Alex Stamos, left to take a job at Stanford. I'm not saying that is the cause of this, but he is the guy that you would point to in a room after 30 million accounts were accessed by a login token stolen during a bug in the view as function, right? He's not there now. So if I'm an angry CEO of a company, one solution I might come up with when I don't have that chief security officer around anymore to say, here, you fix this, is, you know what? We're not letting this happen again. Who's the best at this out there? We will buy them.
Yeah.
And that is my best guess about what happened here. Granted, it's going to look great in the PR, and those are feed-in reasons to justify, like, should we do this? Yes, we should, because we win on all these counts. But I guarantee, well, I don't want to guarantee, I almost guarantee that the knee-jerk reaction is, we can't let this kind of thing happen again. This is a black eye when we already have bloody knees and got punched in the gut recently. And so we need to hire protection. We obviously can't do it ourselves, gentlemen, because look what happened. Let's buy something.
Well, and I'm surprised that this is not more of something that this is being reported as kind of like a novelty that Facebook would want to buy a company like this. It seems like, and possibly because this might just be an industry for which the brain drain leads to companies like Google and Facebook and massive companies with gigantic hiring potential. But certainly it doesn't stop a lot of engineers that create something interesting that just gets snapped up by Facebook and Google for various different reasons to create products. Security is a major issue. But again, to me, the most interesting element of this is that it's not necessarily that Facebook wants to care about security. It's that there is a paradigm shift that is currently happening in our culture, making my Facebook account is insecure. Oops, that's my fault. Old and busted. New hotness. My Facebook account is insecure. Facebook should have done better to make sure that it was more secure to begin with.
And that's the shift from geeks who feel like generally, back in the 90s, like, hey, if you're using the internet, use at your own risk, right? You should be aware of what you're doing, to the general public saying, hey, I'm using your product. You need to make sure it's safe and secure, like all products.
Well, and also the money was a lot less then, right? Like, we're on the internet because we like to talk about Dr. Who.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't like, now it's like, oh, you are a gigantic company that is tilting all of humanity. Guess what? That great power comes with great responsibility. I forget who said that. They should make a movie about it.
Somebody, Stan, something. Anyway, worth pointing out one last time. Looking at companies for suspicious behavior monitoring and account risk assessment. So this isn't about securing accounts at the level of the user. This is about figuring out when somebody has sneaked into your system and stopping them before the damage is done. Hey, thanks to everybody who participates in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. I'm extremely proud of the comments in there recently. You guys have been doing great. And of course, we have a Facebook group. If you're on there, facebook.com/groups/dailytechnewsshow. Let's check in with Nate Langson about what's coming up on episode 148 of Text Message. Roger?
Nick Clegg. What is the point of Facebook hiring him? Of course, he is the ex-Prime Minister of Britain, where we are broadcasting from. And so we've got a lot of local insight we think we could probably shed on this topic. What do we think he's going to do over there in Menlo Park? You can find out our thoughts on that by listening to Text Message at techpodcast.uk. You're on episode 148.
Thank you, Nate. All right, let's dip into the mailbag. It doesn't feel the same without Sarah here, but we'll do our best. Al Spalding, who calls himself a libertarian, thought we would find this interesting. Jamie Dupree, a radio reporter for Cox Communications, which broadcasts on multiple radio stations throughout the Southeast, has been a Washington correspondent for a long time. About 2 years ago, he developed a medical condition that prevented him from speaking more than a couple words, which makes a radio career very tough. However, Al writes he is back on the air through the miracle of software. Full explanation in the story at Jamie Dupree's blog below. A company contacted him with software that uses some machine learning to analyze his years of recordings and pick out the words so that now he can type up his story, run it through the software, and his voice comes out reading it. And there's some great videos of him hearing this for the first time. His anchor station is WSB Radio in Atlanta, so the link is to the Atlanta newspaper. Program director is Pete Spriggs, but you might want to check this out. We'll include a link in the show notes as well. Thank you, Al, for bringing that to our attention. Thank you, Justin Robert Young, for joining us. What's going on in your world these days?
Well, I just got back from Politicon, which was fantastic. And thank you to everybody that I saw down there. But there's no rest for me in October, as we will be at TwitchCon this weekend in San Jose. So Brian and I are doing a talk there on Saturday. But you can follow all of the fun at my Twitter, twitter.com/Justin R. Young.
Go, folks, check it out. Also, reminder, if you didn't realize this, folks who support us at the $5 level on Patreon got a special experimental episode called From the Editor's Desk on Friday. It was just me talking at length about my thought processes and critiques in evaluating a tech story. And this one had to do with Facebook's election war room tour that they gave to reporters. So if you're at that level, or you decide to increase to that level, check it out and let me know what you think. Patreon.com/DTNS, and we'll have a link directly to the post in our show notes. Also, don't forget, we've got a fine selection of DTNS stuff, hats and hoodies, mouse pads and more, stickers even. Go check them out. dailytechnewsshow.com/store. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 20:30 UTC. You can find out more about that at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. Back tomorrow with Patrick Beja. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
The Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Well played. Well played, everyone.
Pond 5.
Pond 5?
There's just been a joke all through the week, for whatever reason. Whenever there was any kind of repeating sound, John and I at Politicon just kept saying, doing the Pond 5 lady bumper of just like Pond 5. Pond 5.
Pond 5.
Pond 5.
I don't even know what that is.
You never used Pond 5? Clip art, clipped audio. They were a podcast sponsor for many podcasts for many years.
Basically, if you wanted to sample the audio, they would put their little watermark on it, and it would be this lady going, Pond 5.
And after I was bleeding, Pond 5 just keeps going. I get it.
But the real question is, Roger, what should we call this episode?
There's an Intellivision commemorative edition.
I feel like I just did a really bad job explaining that story now, because the whole point was that it's not a commemorative edition. It's not a nostalgia play. It's a white console with cool looking controllers, or at least
no. I think that the confusion is warranted in that, like, I think that there's a reason why they jumped up and down and said this isn't that, because it very clearly looks like that. And if they're going to announce retro games that are going to be a part
when
of
you say it looks like that, you mean sounds like that?
There's a perception problem.
Yeah.
And so
because it doesn't look like that if you actually look.
No. I mean, the perception of this product is such that having a confusing back and forth on it is the most accurate reflection of it.
No, there definitely is. I mean, they took the name, one. Two, the controllers resemble the original game controllers that came with the original console. I mean, I think Justin is right in that they're doing both. That they are trying to, and I think I also agree that it is just adds to this confusion that will probably be more of an anchor, moving forward than actually helping them.
Well, I think my problem is a lot of people out there who are hearing us talk about the story are imagining, oh, so it's a mini version of the Intellivision. And I felt I was having a hard time getting across like, no. Let's establish right away that is not what they're doing. They're creating an entirely different looking thing. They're trying to bill it as a modern console. Now that we have everyone clear on that, we can say, but you know what? They also might secretly be trying to play on the nostalgia, and that might be confusing to people.
I don't think it's a secret, though. I mean, you use, if you wanted to create a forward-looking console, you could pull it. Intellivision doesn't have the same.
You're talking about what you think they're really doing, and I'm talking about what they actually said.
No. But they use the name,
right?
Like it's not the new version of this is.
They called it the Amico though on purpose, right? They're like, we're in Intellivision, but I thought that point was getting lost. That's all.
Yeah, I guess you're right that it is getting lost. I don't think that it is because you wrote the story wrong. I think that it is because that point is going to get lost if in your initial thing you're saying we're not a nostalgia thing. Also, we have nostalgia games, but it's not that. It's about this thing.
Our job is to make sure that you understand that that's not what they're trying to do before we say, but I think it's a hopeless cause because they're still calling themselves Intellivision and they're including all of these things. And I wasn't sure we had made that clear. That's all.
There's security gets in your Facebook, the shouldas, couldas, and wouldas of security. Those are two separate titles. And
what was that? Security gets in your Facebook?
Yeah. Like, it gets in your face. Security gets in your face.
Okay.
Putting security in your face and then book is in parentheses is a separate one.
Which one do you love the most, Roger?
Anonymous sources equal black magic.
Yep. Done. Okay. That's our name.
Okay. I was looking for something that was around the main topic.
Yeah, no, that's good. And we should always do that. But I just nothing was grabbing my.
You know what they need to do is rebuild the Amiga and leverage that and say it works with video.
I thought that company I thought somebody was doing.
Well, they've remade them onto a field programmable gate array, but I mean, like, I don't know. It's just it was such an interesting product. There was such a Halo product that was managed so poorly that it just kind of fell out of the market. Tramel.
I just found it really interesting that instead of coming out with a nostalgia play, which is what Atari did, they're like, it's going to play new games, but hey, it looks like Atari. I thought it was really interesting that Intellivision tried to not do that. While
You're
still being
right. I guess.
Why would you?
That's more interesting to me than once again going, here comes another one, because it was different. Calling it the Amico and having it look modern and talking about it as if like, hey, there's going to be new games. And these aren't ports. That's another thing. These are reimaginations even of the old stuff. They're
versions. Yes, and it's
Tommy Tallarico. He was for about 3 months my co-worker at G4.
Nice.
I'm just saying it's going to come out 2 years from today, right? We don't know what the game landscape is going to be. We don't know what kind of developers are going to be able to attract at a $3 to $8 model, right? There's a lot for if their selling point is this is new, this is the future. There was nothing that grabbed. There's a lot of interesting ideas. Whether or not they're viable in 2 years.
Yeah, they weren't trying to say it's the future either. What they were trying to say was, hey, we know there's an unserved niche in the market that likes to play games, but feels like the barrier to entry is too high. I didn't feel we even touched on that point, whether it was valuable or not. But that was his main
Sure. No. I guess
pitch
but
was,
that
hey,
to
we're
me,
trying to be Nintendo, basically.
this is my point, and this is what I think I did make on the show, is that whether it's that price point, and you're right, like what this system does is literally took the complaints that people have about the modern console gaming world, right? Number one, way too expensive. Number two, I'm gonna pay for a game that then in like a week and a half is going to hit me up for a DLC, or is going to be very obviously broken, and I'm going to need a DLC to be interested, in it past, playing it. I feel ripped off oftentimes. So we're going to do that. Now, whether or not that is them responding to the market by saying, we will indeed give you a faster horse instead of we are going to focus on something that is interesting going forward, we'll find out in 2 years. But I guess that's the other thing, is that like the 2-year lead time to me makes so much of this vaporware. It's announcing your plans out loud.
Right. No, I think that's a perfectly fair point. Because it's one thing to get up at the retro gaming conference and say, hey, we're fulfilling all your wishes. It's another thing to have a shipping product. Like, this is not even, they don't even have a prototype. This is all just concept stuff.
And also, it's like that you can't tell me we're watching this video right now. You can't tell me that you're not marketing to retro nostalgia.
Well, and here's the thing. Here's the other thing that I think why this is bugging me so much. The knee-jerk reaction is, you're just trying to play on nostalgia. I don't care what you're saying. Plus, your product isn't real, so it's going to fail. Goodbye, I'm done. Right? That's the knee-jerk reaction. I thought, you know what? Maybe that's all true. But this is an interesting approach to say, actually, we're going to take an old brand, but we're going to try to make it new. We're like, if Intellivision had never stopped making consoles, what would it look like? Maybe it would look like this. Nintendo has retro stuff on their Switch. This is going to be a modern Intellivision console with new games and some reimagined old games. And I thought that was interesting. Beyond whether Intellivision itself can make it work. I don't care if Tommy Tallarico succeeds or not. I just thought that concept was interesting.
Well, I mean, it's a very interesting market segment that they're going after, because it is something focused on simplicity of gameplay, something that typically has been considered the casual gaming market.
It's what Nintendo makes its money on.
Well, no, it would be considered less than Nintendo, because Nintendo does offer AAA 3D gaming, and this is really kind of shoehorning it back into the 2D sprite era. So there has to be a market there, and I'm curious to know what it looks like when this is done. I'm not, I said it before, and I do wish them, the best of luck, because, one of the things that gaming has been covered by is literally AAA titles. And that's what people think video gaming is. There is no nuanced staircase of, different levels of gaming of commitment, right? Not everyone who reads wants to go through a book the size of War and Peace, or the Lord of the Rings or something. Maybe they want to read a novella, or maybe they just want to read a self-help book. Not everyone who reads books reads the same type of books, and I'm really fascinated to know what the kind of audience comes for this particular product.
We haven't talked about food once, though.
I had a salad from Trader Joe's.
Oh,
you ate?
Yes, sort of. It was mostly just chicken.
Was
and
that a poll that I heard?
It was. I accidentally clicked on a thing.
That's funny that I can recognize.
I thought it was a GIF.
Dance. So you ate lunch, Roger.
Yeah, it was breakfast lunch. It was.
Let's have breakfast for lunch.
I have eaten some fruit from the LA United Club.
Mm-hmm.
I ate a mini bagel from the San Francisco United Club. Oh, I have some hot news to break, by the way. Exclusive to the DTNS after show.
Excellent.
November 1st, the LAX United Club, in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and certainly the best in America, will debut a whole new menu, up to and including a taco stand.
Taco stand?
Hot food, baby.
Wait, taco stand, is that going to be something that's going to be contracted out, or is it going to be or just when you do food at the airport, do you have to use the in-house
this is the United Club, so I think they're able to do whatever they want inside those membership walls.
There are usually limits to food, though, that are agreed to in order to not compete too much with the concessionaires, which is why those clubs have rarely had.
Well, no, it depends, because like the Amex Club has like food, like food you'd find at a wedding. Like they've got like
nice
buffet kind of food, right?
Well, and the Delta has macaroni and cheese and sometimes taco bar.
But United has lagged traditionally in the food.
A lot of cheddar cheese I've eaten at a
lot
United
of cheese squares. They did recently step it up. They had a few more soups. They didn't have hot soup for a while. That was only at the US Air Clubs. They eventually wound up having soups, and some charcuterie, and just better versions of the cold food. But now, at least at LAX, according to my exclusive reporting,
right,
they
cultivated sources,
more hot food, starting November 1st, so right around the corner.
You know, your description, Justin, kind of has me envisioning all the food that you get at like Digital Experience, and it's just like at the lounge.
That's pretty much right on.
Can I have one of my stuffed NFL like footballs?
If I were to rank the reasons why I enjoy and continue to have, despite not traveling as much, a United Club membership, it is because I like the following things in the following order. Number one, a place to sit down that's not the floor that is by an outlet. Number two, internet that's usable and reliable. Number three, open bar. And number four, a little, just a nosh, just a nice little piece of grab and go food. In fact, pro tip, friends, super relatable. I know everyone's been in this situation. What you do is when you get off the flight, if it's past 10 or 11, whenever they put the soup out, go to the United Club, toss that soup in a coffee cup, in those disposable coffee cups, sip your soup on the way down to wait for your bags. By the time you're done with your soup, bags are out. You got a little, that little rumbly in your tumbly, just a little bit less.
Is the soup like piping hot or scalding hot?
No. The soup's good. The soup's in one of a nicer, newer, like big old cauldron things that they just leave out for a while. So it's like, and they replace it fairly often. I've never had soup there that I was like, oh my God, this is vile.
I mean, as long as it's hygienic, that's always my concern with self-help.
Yeah, I've always had. They usually have a tortilla soup that is pretty good, or a vegetable like a minestrone kind of soup.
Do they have those margarita slush machines that you see at some of the bars in the airport?
They do not have a margarita slush machine, either for your own use or behind the bar. Unfortunately, they will probably make you a margarita. I don't know if they have margarita mix. I would guess that they would. But they do not have a slush machine, and everything is still behind the bar, unlike international clubs where they just leave out bottles and you just pour it yourself.
Video viewers, I hope you've enjoyed this exclusive reporting on the United Club at Los Angeles. Audio listeners, if you'd like to know what Tom thinks about the Delta Club, stay tuned. There's more to come.